Well, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It's such a privilege to be able to work with communities at local and state levels to build a better future. And it's a privilege to be doing it from Gadigal land. So I'd like to start by acknowledging the First Nations of Australia, their elders past, present and emerging, and also by acknowledging that sovereignty has never been ceded. As Margaret said, I'm the founder of Australian Community Futures Planning, or ACFP. I'm a retired public servant with 30 years experience as a senior executive in community and environmental planning for the longer term and in operation of public services and government-owned commercial trading enterprises. I set up ACFP in 2020, some years after I retired. ACFP is a small, very small, community-based research and planning entity that has been organising to involve Australians in planning a better future for themselves and for future generations. We've developed some processes and tools that can help Australians use their democracy to its fullest potential, so that we have a better chance of overcoming the problems we are facing in social cohesion, the growth of poverty, all types of inequality, including political inequality, climate change, economic security, income security, essential service accessibility, environmental sustainability, and democratic functioning. It might sound implausible that we can overcome all these problems, but ACFP's research shows that we can. We're not talking pie in the sky here. Key among those processes and tools that can help us overcome these problems is national integrated planning and reporting. It's the platform on which all other democratic reforms and programs for sustainable living can be made possible and made to succeed. It's a platform that relieves us from having to rely on politics, which, based on the reports we've produced on the state of Australia, clearly hasn't been working in our favour. Our life quality is not improving, and worse than that, it's been declining for at least the last 30 years. So it's great to have been asked to talk about what national IP&R is here tonight and what it can do for all of us. I'm aware of time constraints, so I'll jump right into explaining it, starting by talking about where it came from. National Integrated Planning and Reporting has been developed by Australian Community Futures Planning as an inclusive, democratic, long-term, integrated, national planning process. But we didn't just make it up out of thin air. It has its roots in local government and is therefore not without precedent as a legitimate process in our democracy. As a democratic process, I'd say it's likely that most Australians have never heard of it, but most aspects of the process are not new. Australians in most states and in the ACT have been using integrated planning and reporting, or approximations of it, in long-term planning for their local areas for more than a decade. Hobart City Council uses it. They're a great example, and the Hobart City Plan is typical of plans for many other towns and cities all over Australia, in that it was formed using the IP&R process. And the Hobart City Plan is typical of the product of that process, in that the different plans the process produces are all based on each local community's own distinct vision for its future. The Hobart City Plan is based on what the local community of Hobart has said they want for the longer term. Put simply, this is what integrated planning and reporting is for. It's there to make it possible for communities to take control of their future by planning for the one they want. The name might sound dry and bureaucratic, but IP&R has been introduced in Australia to create a democratic space where a community can develop a coherent vision for the future they prefer, and based on that, they can then take another step. The council and the community can work together to build a plan to make that vision, whatever it is, a reality, and monitor their progress towards or away from the destination set out in the vision. IP&R gives them all that. We can see here that this is how IP&R has been put to work in Hobart. The Council has taken on the role of Community Engagement Facilitator in the IP&R process. They've helped the community to collaborate to develop their own vision, which, as you can see here, is an overarching statement of what the people of Hobart have decided about what matters to them and what sort of future they want. That's in the blue box in the slide. And the Council has then worked with the community to develop their own long-term strategic plan that will maximise their chances of making the vision in the blue box a reality. So the process brings communities and those they elect together to build practical and safe paths to the future each community wants. But to put a little more detail on that, what IP&R does at the local level is to make it possible for the members of communities to strike a deal with each other and with councils, local businesses, and even their state governments about what everyone will contribute towards achievement of the community's vision and how they will each contribute, financially and in kind. The process gets them together not just to think about what they want, but to agree on how they'll all get there together without working at cross purposes to each other. The process helps them integrate their strategies so that they don't trip each other up along the way to their vision. And it has to be said here that the process doesn't just help them design their preferred future and integrate the safe paths towards it. It also helps them work out how they're going to secure that future, which in the main means it helps them figure out how to finance it. The process helps them make sure they can afford to deliver the future they want and that they will have all the resources they need for that. And as this quote from the Hobart City Plan shows, these plans are thereby worth their weight in gold. They're worth much more than the money everyone puts into them, inasmuch as they lift the spirits of the community and give them hope that a better world and life is really possible. It gives them a realistic expectation that they can organise it within their human, natural and financial resources. And as every economist knows, what we expect to happen in an economy is likely to bring about what happens. Expectations in the doldrums equals slowing economy. Optimistic expectations equals expanding economy. So it's imperative that we get people to a point where they can confidently expect the best future because they've found the safe and practical paths to it. Unless they find those paths, they'll lose hope, especially in democracy, which will be fatal. So one of the great gifts of IP&R is that it helps them understand that their best expectations, their hopes, can be made real. They have a voice, and their voice will make all the difference. That's why I love this little quote from the Hobart City community, and I think it's worth reading it out because it's that community's living, breathing voice. It's the voice of those ordinary residents of the city who worked to develop the vision for the Hobart City Plan and whose hopes were raised by that process. After going through that exercise, they said that as a community, with the courage and support of our council, we aim to be brave enough to create a plan and follow it through. A plan for a preferred future, not one driven by greed or left to chance. A plan that aims to inform and inspire those who don't yet understand. There is an overwhelming excitement for our future, and we are depending on each other and our leaders to maintain the courage to govern, support, and deliver our shared vision. I love that quote because it shows that planning is at the heart of a local community's future, and communities are obviously quite capable of renewing their hopes for the future when a council helps them use the IP&R process. So just to go through this in a little more detail. A key feature of the IP&R process is that it is community driven, and the long-term plans that are produced by the process are the community's plans, not the government's or the council's. And what that means is that the IP&R process allows the community to rise above politics and set their own agenda. It gives them an orderly process for doing that, although when it's used at the local level, it really only gives them the ability to rise above local politics. It doesn't help them overcome the dysfunction of national politics. That national political dysfunction undoes many of the gains that local communities make by working together, as they do every day, at the local level. ACFP's research shows that the net beneficial effect of almost every step you take towards safety, security, well-being and sustainability at the local level is basically slowed, stopped or reversed by federal policies on everything from climate change to environmental and economic management and international relations. On a net basis, overall, the best endeavours of local communities are undone by dysfunction and disintegration in national politics and policy setting. At least, that is how it has played out in the 21st century so far in Australia. The proof of this has been set out in the State of Australia 2022 and the State of Australia 2025. These are two reports which have been produced by ACFP using the IP&R process. We've produced these reports because we're trying to help Australians get past all that dysfunction in national politics. It's our belief, and this arises from having been a senior public servant dealing with politicians for 30 years, that we can't get past political dysfunction, especially at the national level, unless we plan to get past it. But we need a special type of plan, a long-term plan that has been developed democratically, is monitored and reported on independently, is based on sound, up-to-date information, and is composed of strategies that are really well integrated across the spectrum of social, environmental, economic and democratic governance, so that the sum of the whole plan will arc towards a particular preferred future as quickly, safely and affordably as we need it to. ACFP has been able to produce these reports on the State of Australia because we have developed a starting draft or model structure for a national long-term integrated plan that we've called Australia Together. This is one of the tools I've mentioned that we've developed to enhance everyone's capacity to use our democracy to its fullest potential. And we've been testing that model plan with its special structure to see if it enables us to report efficiently to the community on progress towards or away from the vision of that plan. We've called that vision the Vision for Australia Together, and I'll speak about how we developed that vision as a draft for testing purposes later on. But for the moment, the point I'd like to make is that the structure of the plan does enable us to report on progress towards the vision on a factual basis. In short, ACFP has found a way to adapt the process and tools of local IP&R so that the whole Australian community can use them to build a plan for the whole nation and monitor our progress towards the vision of that plan, whatever we might want it to be. ACFP has proved that the process and tools of national IP&R are useful for this purpose by testing them over a succession of federal election cycles. And one key thing we have proved is that it really wouldn't matter what vision you started with. The structure of the plan would still enable you to report on whether the nation was moving towards your vision or away from it. And it would enable you to do that because it uses verifiable data, like the data that ACFP has collated for Australians from credible sources that measured trends in our well-being and the health of the natural environment, the economy, and our democracy. We spent years building this assemblage of data and putting it all in one place so that everyone can easily access and verify it if they want to. This assemblage is called the Australia Together National Wellbeing Index, and it's a large data and information set that is housed inside Australia Together for everyone to see, and it's updated in the reporting that is provided in the State of Australia reports. The index is another of those tools we can use in the national IP&R process, like the vision and the structured plan. Sadly, in Australia's case, the reporting hasn't led us to be able to paint a happy picture of our current situation or our future. Trends aren't positive. And because the index enables you to look forward as well as back, we can use it to reliably predict what we can expect if we don't reverse the negative trends. The last chapter of the State of Australia 2025 shows the results of that forward-looking analysis, and it's not good. Basically, if we define our preferred future in terms similar to those set out in the Vision for Australia Together, we can't, I regret to say, draw any other conclusion than that we have been moving away from that destination, not towards it, as you can see here from this extract from the State of Australia 2025. What you're looking at here is the results of ACFP's use of the indicators, data and information in the Australia Together National Wellbeing Index. And it's showing you that when it's all rolled up, we are experiencing overall trends away from safety, from reconciliation with First Nations, from an inclusive, welcoming and cohesive community, from appreciation of the value of compassion and equality, from good physical and mental health, from accessible education, from species sustainability, from income security. And we're experiencing trends away from affordable and accessible services that are essential to our well-being, from natural resource renewal, from political equality and from democratic openness, from responsible and cooperative behaviour on the international stage, and ultimately we're experiencing trends away from the possibility of peace. In short, what you're looking at here is a decline by decision makers in care for Australians and their country. They've been choosing policies and strategies that are uncaring, and you're looking at the real effects of that. But don't despair, because although that might be a bit depressing, the thing about IP&R is that it shows us that there are safe ways out of this mess. IP&R offers us the safe ways out because it's easy, efficient and forward-looking. It lets us find the safe ways by giving us all advance warnings of where we are heading in the wrong direction. The reporting part of the integrated planning and reporting process is crucial to getting us out of the mess. So the sooner we master using this at the national level, the sooner we'll all be safe. And the really good news is that this is not at all hard to master. ACFP has been able to do this sort of detailed reporting with very few resources because when you practice IP&R, you know what you're trying to achieve and you can report on whether you're achieving it or not as a nation. It's an inbuilt capacity within the national IP&R process, and crucially, it's efficient. Efficiency is crucial because people are time poor, and if you want to get them participating more in their democracy to do something that, let's face it, they've never done before, if you want them to collaborate to plan the whole nation's future and the safe paths towards it, and you want them to do that before the mess gets any worse, before the planet heats much more, before corporations gain irreversible hold over every politician and all aspects of our security, well, you have to give them an efficient, orderly and fully accessible way of doing it. IP&R does that. And one key element of the efficiency of the whole thing is that it makes us write down everything we want in one place so that we can all see it and pursue it. It makes us confirm all that as a community through collaboration rather than endless adversarial bickering. And it gives us the data and information we need to do a good job of it, a job that will make the nation work to everyone's benefit, not just for some. It gives us what we need to make sure we get to where we want to go as a national community via the safe routes. A key benefit here is that anyone who wants to can see what's going on. They can see, for instance, whether current economic arrangements are translating into improvements in well-being. Because what else is an economy for? This is possible because the planning is supported by a measurement system which monitors well-being. Or to put that another way, IP&R obliges us to measure life quality by looking at what the economy is delivering for us in total well-being. You only get this from a planning system that integrates economic plans with social, environmental and democratic plans. This is pretty important for our chances of building the life quality we want. A great strength of national IP&R is that it measures not just the health, strength and resilience of the economy, but also our health, our strength and our resilience. And it checks whether the former is leading to the latter. And using that process over the past 6 years since ACFP was established, it's telling us that our economy is not fit for our purposes. The direction of change over the last 10 to 25 years, which in national IP&R is measured not by monitoring GDP growth, although we do have reasons to track that and we do track it, but by monitoring improvement or deterioration in 367 other indicators of the health of our society, environment, economy, and democracy. And it's all been negative. Everything we want and need for a decent quality of life is deteriorating. So what I'm saying here is that if an economy is not the sum of GDP, but the sum of all its members' well-being, our economy is in decline. The volume of well-being that is being delivered has been following a consistent trend of decline for about 25 years. There are no other systems of planning and reporting that will give you this picture of the facts. Jim Chalmers' Measuring What Matters Wellbeing Indicators framework will not tell you that, mainly because of the narrowness and selectivity of the indicators he has chosen, and also because he's chosen those indicators without first saying what he wants the nation to track towards. But as you can see here, when you take more data into account on well-being, the state of the environment, inequality and poverty, and democratic inclusion, and when you select indicators based on what you want to achieve over a longer time frame than politics normally allows, things are not as rosy as our recent governments have tried to make out. And we need to know the full truth about this sooner rather than later if we are to have enough room left to change course in time. You can see here that Dr. Chalmers' Measuring What Matters indicators don't paint all that rosy a picture of trends in our well-being, but it's rosier than the picture we get if we measured progress towards the sort of well-being described in the Vision for Australia Together. And I'd venture to suggest that the more nuanced picture provided in the State of Australia 2025 will probably resonate as true with anyone who has found it difficult to afford a home, pay the rent, take care of kids and elders, eat well, get an education, see a doctor, and still balance their budget. And my latest book, The Public Interest Economy, shows that this is not a small problem in Australia. It's a big one. Surveys by the Australian National University and the Scanlon Foundation have shown that between 35 and 40% of adult Australians, which equates to about 8.5 million adults, have suffered financial difficulties since COVID, and they are stuck there. So, to summarise, National IP&R has been developed by ACFP to provide a space where the whole nation can work together to describe the future they want and build a safe and practical plan to make it a reality. What we have all been doing successfully in collaboration at the local community level, like in Hobart, we can now do at the national level, so that we can reverse the trends of decline in so many aspects of our lives. We can do this because we have good tools like the Structured Plan of Australia Together and the Australia Together National Wellbeing Index, And we have processes for developing any vision we want and processes to figure out how to fairly and affordably finance our way towards it. Now, I'm aware that this is a lot of detail and that I'm probably begging a lot of questions which I hope to be able to answer in a coherent fashion. But if there is any confusion about all this, I think at this point it might deconfuse things a bit if I just set out some final points about how the national IP&R process works as a whole. Basically, IP&R works in the same way at the national level as it does already at the local level, except in one aspect, which I won't go into tonight, but I'm happy to talk about later if people want to. It works in a cycle aligned with our elections, and understanding the cycle is the key to participation in it. If you know how it works, you can make your own decisions about when you want to get involved and when you don't. So, with the way ACFP has designed the process, the national IP&R cycle starts just after a federal election, where the community is invited into democratic planning and agenda setting by developing their plan or revising the most recent one if it isn't the first cycle. And I should say here that in national IP&R in Australia, we needn't start a cycle by developing a plan from scratch. Because ACFP has developed and tested a democratically open process, we can easily revise the existing drafts of Australia Together and the vision. There's no need to start all over again and lose speed, which should be considered good news because we are very short of time to secure a future of safety. But regardless of whether we want to start all over again or not, the process lets us start by developing or reviewing the vision, just like the people of Hobart did. Once that's done, then participants can work together to select safe directions towards the vision. In national IP&R, ACFP calls these safe directions signposts. They're just one-line statements that would fit on a street sign, and they give you directions as to the safe paths to the future. They're really central to making the whole thing work efficiently because they make it easy for people to agree on strategies that will follow the safe paths. They protect what we want to protect about our current lives, but also help us become what we want to become as a nation. Australia Together is a map. It's a map of the safe paths to the future, and the signposts stop us from selecting strategies that will take us along an unsafe path or away from our preferred destination. They stop endless arguments about how to get to where we want to go, and so I call the structure of the plan with its vision and directions a time-saving, automatic quarrel settler. With these signposts, safe strategies become obvious very quickly, as do unsafe ones. So the sooner we learn to get involved in populating the plan using this signpost system, the sooner we will arrive safely home. At the national level, we can speed the planning process along quite quickly because we don't need to develop the vision and directional signposts from scratch. All we have to do is to listen what Australians have already said in surveys, focus groups and community engagement and local planning programs whenever they've been asked about what they want and value for the future. So, for example, when participants in a community engagement program worked together to develop the Vision for Australia Remade, and here's a big shout out and thank you to Australia Remade, all ACFP then needed to do in IP&R was listen to that and to listen to as many other responses as we could find about what Australians have already said they want for the future. And we needed to write that down in one place. Working out how to collate all that has been easy because, as Australia Remade has pointed out, deep down, we all basically want the same things. We don't quarrel about what we want for the future. So there will be very little need to spend a lot of time in each cycle building a vision for what we want from scratch. ACFP collates the data on this And we've done that because you can't actually test whether a planning process will work at either a local or national scale without a draft vision. We've collated it into a 17-element vision, and once we had that, we were able to develop signposts for safe travel to the destination it described. We were able to do this because we added some checks into the process of developing the draft vision that I won't go into now, but they are important. So if people are interested, I can talk about that later. But to return to the cycle, once you have the vision and directions, it becomes a straightforward matter to build the database we need to monitor and report on progress. At ACFP, we have collected that necessary data, baseline information, targets and strategies, and put it into the starting drafts of the plan. It's all housed in chapters 5 to 8, and that has made it possible to report on progress. We can tell you where the nation is failing and where we are succeeding in relation to the vision. We have been able to roll up all that information into a considered picture of our well-being and that of our environment and democracy. This is the well-being that has arisen basically from the structure of the economy that we've been living with under the prevailing policies and governance arrangements of neoliberalism. So, just to finish up here, I'd like to say that because ACFP has developed national IP&R, we've discovered that it opens up enormous potential to democratise our economy and increase our influence as political equals. It's been a journey that we hope all Australians will benefit from, and we've tried to make it as easy as we can for everyone to get involved as and when they need to or want to. We're always working to see how we can open up access to it, and we'll be concentrating on that over the next 2 to 3 years. My recent book, The Public Interest Economy, basically sets out how we think we can do that in our next phase. So if anyone is looking for more detail about the practical application of national IP&R and how we can benefit from it both as individuals and as a nation, I'd suggest that book might be of interest. And to wrap up, I'd like to pose an answer to a question I ask myself from time to time, which is, why am I doing this? Why should we plan and report? Why am I so passionate about it? Mostly, the answer boils down to, well, it needs doing and politicians won't do it. And to me, it's elementary that if I want to get somewhere, I have to plan to get there. Like the people of Hobart, I don't think it can be left to chance. And if I want to get there safely, I need a map of the safe paths. And I need a tracking system to allow me to work out whether I've taken the wrong path. This means that a reporting system is needed because I need to check whether the government is taking me along the safe paths. We all need a system to check that the government is working for us, really working for us. That's why ACFP produces another type of report just before each federal election, the Better Futures Commitment Index. Again, this report uses IP&R to assess whether what the major parties are offering will move you towards the vision for Australia Together or not. You can use it to see if you want to re-elect them. So IP&R doesn't just help you rise above politics, it helps you change it. If you want to change politics, and if you want to change the economy in particular, so that they both work in your favour, you have to play the long game, just like the neoliberals did from the 1980s onwards. And to play the long game as quickly and safely as we can, we need a plan of the safe paths to our preferred destination. It has to be a really savvy plan if we are to outflank corporate corruption and state capture. But the structure of Australia Together and the national IP&R process are there now to help you with that. Hopefully, Australians will find it useful. Thanks for listening to all of that. If you'd like to find out more about national IP&R, visit the ACFP website at www.austcfp.com.au. Everyone is welcome to participate.